talk will take you on a journey through the substages of perception as we explore the different categories and techniques used in stage 4. From tangible and intangible to analytical overlay and more, we will uncover the secrets and strategies used by professional reviewers to unlock the mysteries of the target side. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be amazed by the incredible world of movement stage 4. And let us talk a little bit about our experience, how you experience stage 4 when you pass stage 3. Or let me ask you another question. What are the first signs for you when you come to the end of stage 3 and you are ready and will enter the stage 4?
Yeah, like a gatekeeper. For me, what'll happen is you're already trained to set aside your AOLs. So for me, just after doing so many sessions, what I'll find is I set aside my AOL after I've gotten a certain amount of a few sketches, and you'll start to the AOLs will start to take on a different kind of a feel. Like you'll just be like, ooh, this feels like pertinent data. And then I'll kind of make that transition to stage 4. Sometimes I will feel like a drive. It's almost like an internal drive, like pushing me to stage 4. Not because after a while, you just want to get there. Your internal processes just want to push you there. So I try at this point to push out stage 3 as much as I can. And then go into my stage 4. But internally, you feel a drive. You feel the data starting to change. The feel of the data will start to change.
Yep. So we have here an example of your progress of stage 4. Maybe you want to go inside a little bit and explain what's going on here. This is the session from project 8200.
Yeah, so what stage 4 was I was so immersed in stage 3. I had built out my stage 3 so much. I had done so much stage 3. Stage 4 was a dramatically different stage for me. And what would happen is I struggled in the beginning because as soon as I went to stage 4, I'd have all these stage 2s, I'd have some dimensionals, I'd get some AIs, and then all of a sudden I'd put my pen into some of these other columns and I would just stall out. It's just the aperture would feel like it would just close up on me. And what I found was I just got to keep that pen moving. As long as I keep, I'll drop in some of my impressions here, as you could see, and as I start to kind of like stall out, I'll just keep moving that pen. As I start to moving that pen ferrets out that kinesthetic, drives out those impressions. So I kind of marry that, I feather that in. I kind of stitch in like the sketching process into my stage 4, and it keeps expanding the aperture.
Yeah, you same like me. You're working with the visuals. If they're popping up, you take your time and you express them in kind of a sketch like here. So when you get emotional impacts, most of the time you perceive before a person, or it's more like the structure here that you go in your AI. I mean, an aesthetic impact, our own feeling about the site, can be influenced from an emotional impact and vice versa. How is it for you?
So the aesthetic impact, which is your reaction to what's going on at the target, can be and it kind of works like that, reactionary. So as you're kind of poking around the target, imagine your subconscious is kind of just moving from place to place. And say you bump into somebody, okay, now you've interpreted their feelings. You get they're crying, they're this, they're that, whatever the narrative of the situation might be. You detect their feelings. Now, depending on what's playing out, let's say you're doing like a murder case or something like that, and you pick up these really sleazy feelings or something from a person at that target, then you may have a reactionary feeling to what's going on there. Let's say you're witnessing something kind of traumatic or something. You pick up on a really creepy guy. You have an EI of like a sick mind. And then you have an AI of like, this is disturbing to me. This is, this target is, I feel creeped out by this, whatever. And you will kind of ping pong back and forth between these columns. And as you progress, though, you'll notice in just about, I think probably this is just like, just this is how the process works, just about every session, is you'll see that the data starts to work from the left side of the sheet to the right. And deep into the matrix, you'll have, by the end, you'll have most of your data will be laying on the right side of the sheet. You'll have tangibles, intangibles. That's kind of the process. You're working from the left of the sheet to the more progressive data points, which moves to the right.
I mean, we can see the repeating pattern here that we have our stage 2 column here. It goes like in stage 2, then to the dimensionals, and the dimensional best case will trigger a kind of static impact. We've got the same pattern like the transition from stage 2 to stage 3 here, from the beginning. So sometimes I'm wondering why we've got directly here an emotional impact, because for me, we will see that later in my session, I perceive, before I have emotional impacts from other beings, other persons on site, I perceive really a person and describe the person, but maybe that's individual because other viewers are staying in the structure like here.
Yeah, I mean, so much of as you well know, so much of the process, once you've reached stage 4, now at this point, you're basically, in a very general sense, sorting data. A big part of the process is sorting the data that's coming into your mind, and learning how it comes in so you put it in the right place. And that's really a big part of the magic behind CRV. To me, how it culminates in the end is now you kind of have a sense of what, and you learn this in the training, how data comes into your system, and then the way it comes into your system, you could filter that into the columns.
Yeah, it's. I think it's important that the natural unfolding of the data have to be stable. It have to be a natural way, and not to try to be forced into a column. I mean, we can see it here clear. You've got dimensional. Let us start here. You've got S2 data, dimensional. AOL came up. You went back to the dimensionals, and AI came, and EI came. AOL, you're jumping in the columns. Really interesting is the responsibility of the remote viewer to decide what I get now here. Is that really a tangible? Can I really touch it on that side? Can I touch it, or is it maybe an analytical overlay, or is it an analytical overlay signal? And this was the case, one of the most difficult things for me in stage 4, to become a feeling of the data. Is that a real AOL now? Or is that an AOL signal? Or is it so true data that I can say it's intangible?
Yeah, that's definitely where it gets into the finer point of the process, is telling the difference in the data. And what it's like, to me, for stage 4, like I said, I just pepper in my sketches, and I just kind of drop the impressions as I sketch where they belong. Once you get deep into the matrix, once I pounded out 3-4 pages though of stage 4, now like at that point, then I'll start queuing things up, because I feel I've established the connection to the target is stable enough to where I could say, all right, what's most noteworthy here? What's important here? What's this? I go into people's minds, start asking them the questions. That's all stuff you could do in stage 4.
Yeah, we can see here a small example about the separating for ourselves. What is it now? Is that an AOL signal, or is that an intangible, as an example? Here we can see it really well. Let us talk a little bit about stage 4 and half. Stage 4 and half is one of the most interesting points in stage 4 for me personal. Because when I come to this point, I know that my mind and my system have so much data already that something's coming up in my mind what I cannot bring in a small column as a one-word descriptor. So this idea came up from Bill Ray's wife because they had a talk about especially this topic, and she came to the idea to say, if these are sentences, then put it into a kind of stage 4.5 or something. And the remote viewers try that out, and it stands till today, and it works out. So how you're handling stage 4.5 when it pops up for you?
Yeah, it's just like you described, and how how Sandy had talked about it. It's good data, but it comes in like a sentence, okay, in your mind, and you know it's good data, but it doesn't quite fit into any column, and you want to express that whole sentence just the way it is. So you mark it as a stage 4.5. You declare this sentence, this big impression. What's also really interesting, that I think that we've seen as far as in a lab setting and doing some other interesting things within the field of remote viewing is I personally believe that stage 4.5 is actually like another threshold, because we've seen this many times where Theo will, and vice versa, where we'll reach a stage 4.5, and at that point anything goes. Meaning, like after you've reached that threshold, you could start making up your own tools, asking more intricate questions. To me, I think stage 4.5 is like another threshold within the process, because once you've hit that, I've seen you, as a monitor, I've seen you do a bunch of different things with me as a viewer. In the process. So yeah, it's kind of it's an interesting discovery, and it's an important one. I use stage 4.5 all the time, as do you.
It is a kind of new opening. It's like the aperture is widening up again, massive, like a jump. It's I sense the same for me. After I wrote in as 4.5, I'm starting to question in brackets other persons, or that's for me the point where I can say for myself, okay, I'm so deep in at the target site right now that I can jump into extend remote viewing as an example. I would never do it before I have the stage 4.5. So yeah, maybe we
Now that you
discovered
mention that,
something.
now that you mention that too, I didn't really realize it, but I would probably say for the most part, after I get a stage 4.5, that's probably when I start doing more specific questions, ask questions out of the mind of the targets, asking myself internally specific questions after I've hit that threshold. It's almost like it's a safer bet. It's like the cement has solidified, and now you could get into the deeper data.
I can see here. I don't use that so much. I talk here about Jumpsheets. You're working a lot with Jumpsheets to express your visual impressions. So I want to go back to the question how it unfolds in your mind when you come to the idea to say, oh, now I need a jump sheet. What happened with you? You get pictures, or you it's a feeling that you want to express yourself now in a kind of sketches, or what's going on there with you?
Well, I probably use them less than I used to, but a lot of times in sessions, along with the data, a visual interpretation will not only like draw out a deeper impression within the viewer, but it also could be very helpful to the tasker depending on what's going on. So, sometimes I just feel like, okay, I want to make a big, broad expression of this target in hopes that it will, you'll feel, you kind of feel guided internally to the session, and it's really interesting how that association works. It's almost like your subconscious mind is almost kind of helping you, guide you into the direction. Like something will compel you. Like, I think I'm going to ask this guy a question. Like something just internally it just drives you to that. So more and more often now, I just end up sketching in my matrix. But every once in a while, I'll just feel compelled to push out a big idea or a big sketch,
Okay.
and I'll go to a jump sheet.
Okay. I get that point. Yeah, most of the time I'm sketching inside the matrix here also, same like you're doing it here most of the time. Okay, when we're coming to ask ourselves or other persons at the target site about the target, we're trying to do it on a passive way so that we're not absorbed by some AOL analytical overlay or something. Normally we're doing this with persons at site and not so often with ourselves. What are the reasonings for you to ask yourself what is behind that?
The reason why I would ask myself a question is when you are remote viewing a life form in any scenario, and you ask them their opinion of what's happening, you ask them the question, you'll get an answer, a correct one, but those answers are going through the biases of that person. So
That's
what I like to
interesting.
do is sometimes, yeah. So sometimes I'll have, depending on what's going on, I'll be compelled to ask the person at the target, like, what are your thoughts? What are you doing? But then I'll go to a broader perspective and ask myself, okay, what's happening here? Because when you ask yourself, you're not pushing that question through the filters of whoever's at the target. You're asking through your own senses, like, what's the broader scope of what's happening here?
Yeah.
And depending on what's going on, you may want to know the inner thoughts of this person. On other situations, you may need to know. You may want to just know the bigger scope of what's actually happening. So I try to pepper in both. Depending on the situation, you'll feel the internal drive to guide you.
Yeah. I mean, it helps also. We have got a raw intention, what moves us at the target site, and we can refine and help with questioning ourselves to get a subconsciousness, our perception system to the right areas, what we want to discover. Yeah, similar for me there. Here you questioned some yourself, and here you questioned another person or being. Show me what's most noteworthy here. These are typically kind of questions what we're asking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like perfect example. Like I'll put in brackets me. Like so to what I think. So if I look at this target and I ask myself what's most noteworthy here, I may get an answer that may relate to the bigger picture. If I ask the guy there what's most noteworthy here, he's going to give me an answer according to him working at this place, from his perspective, what he thinks is most important. So those could
Yeah.
be two very different answers.
So I mean, the stage 4 in on the original way from the Stanford Research Institute developed, allowing to squeeze out stage 4 completely and not be only on one page or something. And we're doing that regularly in all our sessions, that we're trying to stay a big chunk of our time in stage 4 and gathering a lot of intangibles, tangibles, more and more bigger picture of the target site. So we can really see it nice on your session here. So let us come to my session, stage 4 from the Roswell crash. I want to talk a little bit about cluster building. You can see we've got a stage 2 impressions here, metallic cold, hot, yellow, dimensional pops in, deep, white, high. Came to an analytical overlay, and I went back here. Because on the theory approach, we have this cluster building, we're allowing that cluster building, and we're allowing ourselves to jump wherever we need in the columns to express our data, what we have in our mind. It's like a reflection of the psychic signal, like a card, like a map, what we are doing here. And how we talked before when it comes here to visual data sets, we're expressing them here. It's all kind of cluster building.
Yeah, and you get that. I'm sorry, Theo, to interrupt. I just want to say, but just to explain, that's kind of how it goes.
No problem. All the things where we are interrupting ourselves, I'm cutting that out.
Yeah. And that's kind of how it goes. Like if you look at Theo's sessions, you got stage two, dimensional, back to stage 2, dimensional, AOL. You'll get these clusters, drop down, and then you'll get maybe some noise, and you throw it away, and you go back to the data, and you're kind of and as you go along you're just getting better at, and the noise seems to kind of streamline. But like I said, that's a perfect example, Theo. That's when we talk about these clusters. You get these impressions of good data, good data noise, good noise.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it works.
It is also the way how it really comes to a storyboard. As an example, if we are working only with the approach that we say only stage 2 data, as an example, the approach in technical remote viewing is that you are staying in the structure only stage 2s, then only dimensionals, then only AIs, then only EIs, going really this way from top to bottom, from left to right. You can do this, but in my opinion, we are losing a lot of concrete data. If we have this cluster building from metallic, cold, hot, yellow, deep, bright, high, AOL project jump, whatever project jump is, it is quite wide and sequential, like an important event. So we cannot, if we don't have the option to talk about the noise, to talk about maybe tangible or an intangible, we are losing the focus of one area. As an example, if I'm looking around here in my environment, as an example, and I'm starting to say, okay, it is white, brown, soft, reddish, bright, dark, metallic, silvery, dimensional, angular, roundish. You can see already on the way where I move my head, I'm describing the whole room, but I cannot define where is what when I don't allow the cluster building. If I'm saying as an example, white, soft, it's elongated, it's thin, it's stuffy. I don't know this word in English.
Yeah, it could build into your tangible. It could
exactly.
Those impressions could build into your next tangible, or vice, or your next intangible. Yeah, so
exactly. Curtain. It's the name. Yeah. Curtain, net curtain, drapery, drape. So you can really specialize and express specific one point, one area of the target. So there's a big advantage to work on the natural unfolding way, and you have a kind of story, So it was metallic, cold, hot, yellow. It was deep. It was bright at sight. High dimensionals also. Mm-hmm. It reminds me on Project Jump. It was quiet and wide. There's sequential feeling about, like an important event. So something is showing here. It's reddish green. A great big and massive environment. So I hear sounds, band. These sounds brings a strange feeling for myself, like a kind of creature here. It's interesting for me. This creature is interesting for me. So I feel from this creature anger and surprising. It is reddish. It have an old feeling, like an old event. You see already the storyline, what is built up automatically if you're working like that. This is a big advantage. I hope everybody gets what I try to express here in my broken English.
No, that's right. Yeah.
So then it came up to the stage 4.5 where I cannot hold this in one word descriptors anymore. Sentence popping up in my mind. It was yellowish, it had cube dimensional, reddish, blinking. It is about the concept of connected. I can touch a technology, chips and light. It's black and I can touch a surface. It's small, big. S4.5. I sense a kind of darkness in a technology vehicle built for long distance traveling. It pops up from nowhere and it will be in stage 4.5. And so on and so on and so on.
This is one of my favorite sessions that you ever did. It's a perfect example too. Like as you get deeper, the data points get bigger. The literal data information, it's bigger data bits of information, and it just reminds me like when you're it's almost like to me it's almost like when you're really getting into a target. It's almost like you're staring into a vortex, and like the hole just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're flying faster and faster and faster into it. And the information gets more, But this is a fantastic example of, it's a really interesting target. And when you and again too to point out, depending on the target, what it is, you may have all these impressions in this column or that column, or if it's about a person, you may have all these EIs. And not every target is different. Like this is an event; it had a lot of meat on the bone, and you just dug right into it.
Yeah, some strange visual expressions. Shocked, speechless. Whatever.
Explain this to me. It was like, woo.
I remember the session really well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about AOL signals. It's like, that's maybe a good example here. I've got striking surprise and intangible. I could touch a life form, a person. It was green. The life form was tall and small. And that's a good example of how my visual came up. Tall and small. And my visual came up, like a bigger being and a smaller being. What is this about? Like showing, explaining, teaching. It is like signal, like a life form is showing a person something in the sky. Finger pointing. Now you see the nice combination.
Yeah, that signal.
Synergy effect.
That signal. Yeah. That signal is like it's all and at this point, like when you're so deep, you could tell where you get an impression. It's like it's almost just like this. Which is signal. Which a lot of times it'll be exactly that, but it'll come in as an information into your mind. It's just like this, or it's like that, and that to me, I would signal. And then sometimes it's exactly right. It could be exactly right, but you put that. That's the difference between AOL and AOL signal is where it's almost like this, as to where this is strictly AOL.
Yeah, it is the truth content of AOL going from AOL to an AOL signal into a maybe tangible or intangible. So I would explain it. Yeah. I mean, most of the time when it came for me that I express myself here in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, that I collect so much data in my mind, and there's so much what I couldn't not really grab or express that I try to break down over stage 5 all the impressions what I get and extrasensoric information and interrogating the data line. But this will be our next episode to talk more and deeper about stage 5.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that in a general sense, stage 4 is almost like the backbone of the process. I mean, nowadays when I go to my summary, I usually almost don't even start it until I get into my stage. That's not completely true. I do some stuff in stage 3, but typically on a lot of these targets, we don't need to go to stage 6 or beyond stage 4. It just depends on what it is. But so a lot of the time, stage 4 is really pretty hardy chunk of the session.
Operational remote viewer have only to be really good till stage 4. You can use operational remote viewer. You are only trained till stage 4 as an example. You don't really need stage 6. It's not necessary to work operational.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us, Stage 4, Remote Viewing Insights, and we'll catch you next time on Stage 5.
See you soon.